How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the Poise Showcase series, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Mace on a dark build. Now let's go straight into the status page here, guys. We're at soul level 125 using the Prisoner's Chain as usual, and those are my stats there. Now the Mace, when it's dark infused, with these stats at its full upgrade level, two-handed, is getting 553 AR, which is pretty damn good for a medium hyper armor weapon. Now in terms of the Dark Gem Infusion, guys, you do not want to be going above 30 Intelligence and 30 Faith, as you'll get diminishing returns after that. You're far better off staying at 30-30 and then putting those extra points into the main stat of your chosen weapon. So what I mean by that is the Dark Mace here, for example, gets a B scaling in Strength. So that's better than obviously the E scaling in Dexterity, so that's where your extra points are going to go, into Strength, and because of that, that's how we're getting such a good AR from this particular weapon here, using the Dark Infusion. Now back over to the equipment page here, guys. The Dark Mace plus 10 is my main weapon, and in my second right hand slot I have a Dark Partizan plus 10. Now obviously they're both dark infused, so you can chip through shields, and the Partizan here, guys, is basically the weapon I use to finish people off. Now the Mace itself has pretty poor range, so it's pretty bad at actually chasing people down, so switching out to the Partizan, which is a spear, is exceptionally good in those situations to finish those people off. So basically you're just going in there for running attacks to finish them with those pokes. Now another good thing about the Partizan, in my opinion here, is basically you can total with this setup using the shield, and it's effective against certain weapon classes that like to use those running attacks. So essentially curved swords and katanas, for examples, that have really strong running attacks, you can negate that by blocking and then poking through the shield. Now the thing with the Ethereal Oak Shield here, guys, is that it only has 50 stability, so it's not as strong at blocking as, for example, the Black Knight shield, but you do still get the 100% physical absorption there, guys, and to be honest, the stability isn't bad. The only thing you have to watch out for here is you're not going to be blocking all of your opponent's attacks, so you're going to be choosy about what you choose to block, essentially. Now these running attacks are a good thing to block with the shield using this setup, and then going for those pokes if you're given the opportunity. And on top of that, because the Ethereal Oak Shield actually has the weapon skill ability, you can go straight into your weapon art when you are blocking. So for the Mace, it's not such a big deal because it's Perseverance and we're going to be two-handing the Mace anyway, but for the Partizan, it is pretty cool occasionally, I guess, to pull off that weapon art straight out of a block. And it does have a decent amount of hyper armor that will stack with your armor poise as well, so you are going to get favorable trades using that weapon art situationally against faster weapon classes. Now back over to the equipment page. In my second left hand slot I have a light crossbow plus 10, which is my utility tool, and I'm using explosive bolts with it. And in the third left hand slot I have the Sacred Chime of Philionor, as usual, to open a match in the arena using HP regen. So essentially I cast Bountiful Light, and if I'm given time I will cast Pray for Favor as well, and then switch out to the Ethereal Oak Shield for a total passive HP regen bonus of 12 HP regen per tick for at least 60 seconds of the match. Now the Ethereal Oak Shield has that passive HP regen ability, so essentially you're getting 2 HP per tick when you're using it or when you have it on your back. So that will stack with the Philionor's weapon art and with Bountiful Light. Now in terms of armor, I have the Elite Knight Helm, the Gundy's armor, the Ring Knight Gauntlets, and the Exile Leggings for a total armor poise of 40.74. Now what this means is that when we are two-handing the Mace, we can infinitely hyper armor trade against every two-handed R1 from all fast weapon classes. We can tank one-handed R1 from other hammers and also from greatswords. But when a greatsword user or a hammer user is using their weapon two-handed, we can't trade at all with them using this particular setup unless using Perseverance. And this also goes obviously for the ultra weapons, so you cannot be tanking two-handed R1s from great axes, great hammers, or ultra great swords unless you're using Perseverance. But against all those faster weapon classes here, guys, we're going to be infinitely hyper armor trading against them, and it's good to bait out those trades with the Mace against those faster weapon classes, as it's a little bit quicker than using an ultra weapon. Now in terms of those bigger weapons, guys, when you're two-handing your Mace here, guys, you want to use Perseverance. So Perseverance is all about the timing. Essentially what I like to do is I like to use Perseverance as my opponent commits to their first attack using an ultra weapon and then going for the trade. Now usually it's a favourable trade depending on what ultra weapon you're tanking against, but the advantage you'll have with getting your timing absolutely correct is that the first swing from your opponent will hit you as Perseverance is activating. You'll go for your first swing, which your opponent will tank obviously because they're using that ultra weapon and have a lot of hyper armor. When they go for their second swing, you're going to take it, you're going to swing back, and because they go into recovery frames after that second swing, into their startup frames for their next attack, the third swing, or the second or third swing from the Mace is actually going to punch through and cause them to stagger. So essentially you're going to get out 3 hits for your opponent's 2 if your opponent is using the ultra weapon, depending on how good you are with your timing with Perseverance. So it's all about practicing that with this particular build against those bigger weapon classes. Now, back over to the equipment page. In terms of rings, we have the Chloranthy +3, the Prisoner's Chain, the Havel's Ring +3, and also the Ring of Favour +3 to round out the build. So I'll discuss the pros and cons of the Partizan and the Mace at the end of the video, so let's go straight into some matches here, guys. Alrighty guys, here we go. So it looks like we have the Ring Knight paired greatswords over there, so we're definitely going to have to be using Perseverance here to be able to out-trade that particular weapon. Now it's interesting because he has a parrying shield there instead of having the second Ring Knight paired greatsword in his left hand, so I'm wondering if he's just looking for an opening there to parry. Yep, he was. Whoop, cop that. That's alright, we made up for it there with that exchange. Very easy to punish that. Whoops. Almost got him. Oh! GG. Alrighty guys, next match. Oh wow, look, it's Lido's Great Hammer. Going to have to put our Perseverance to the test here. GG. Alrighty guys, next match. Alrighty, so it looks like we have the Murakumo over there, buffed with Blessed Weapon. GG. Alrighty guys, straight onto the next match. So, looks like we have a Ring Knight paired greatswords user. With a Black Knight shield. Interesting. A very defensive Ring Knight paired greatswords user. Whoop! Pretty easy to get behind that weapon art, in my opinion there, guys. Whoop! And GG. Alrighty guys, straight on to the next match. So it looks like we have a katana over there. Go for that trade. GG. Alrighty guys, next match. Looks like we have a big ultra greatsword over there. What is it? The greatsword? It is the greatsword. No one ever expects that sneaky crossbow. There we go. So he switched up to the Executioner's greatsword. Thanks for the whoop free Estus there, dude. And there we go, GG. Alrighty guys, straight on to the next match. Okay, so it looks like we have, what is that, the Man Serpent Hatchet? It's pretty cool. Haven't seen that one in use in PvP, pretty much at all, really. There we go. Straight into that trade. Whoop. GG. Alrighty guys, let's go for one last match here. Looks like we have a Ring Knight paired Greatswords user over there. Razor Bloodshed. Oops, I almost botched that. A little bit of latency. There we go, nice trade for us. Whoop, not so good that time, not so good that time, but that's alright. And there we go, GG. Alrighty guys, so that brings us to the end of this particular video, taking a look at the Mace on a dark build. Now, what can I say about this weapon? For me personally, I think it is exceptionally powerful on a Poise build. The reason being, it is a medium hyper armor weapon that falls in the regular hammer class, but when you two-hand this thing and your armor poise optimized, you can get a lot of mileage out of its hyper armor when you're baiting those trades. So essentially, like this build here, we can infinitely hyper armor trade against all fast weapon classes, and using Perseverance, which we can also contest those heavier weapon classes at the trade as well. So not only do you have the versatility to out-trade faster weapon classes with ease, but you can also contest those heavier weapon classes as well using Perseverance, and you have a speed advantage against them as well. Now, so for those reasons, essentially, I love this thing on a Poise build, guys, and that's why I've enjoyed this build so much so far. Now, in terms of cons, though, it does have some significant cons that prevent this weapon from being top tier, namely being that it has piss poor reach. So essentially, any decent player is going to be outspacing you fairly effectively because this thing doesn't have very good reach at all, and because of that, it is really bad at finishing people off as well. On top of that, it is quite slow, and it also has a boring moveset. So you only have the R2 and the R1s. So because of its slowness and its boring moveset here, guys, it lacks the versatility of, say, a straight sword. A straight sword is a lot faster. Usually, it'll have a bit more reach, and it also has more mix-ups in its moveset with pokes and thrusts as well. So it has nowhere near the versatility of those top-tier weapon classes, so namely being the straight sword class, guys, so that prevents it from reaching that level. But in saying that, for a Poise build, it is very powerful, in my opinion, and if you know what you're doing with it, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of using the Mace. Now, in terms of the Partizan, I personally love the Partizan, so I'm a little bit biased towards it. It is quite good here in this particular setup at finishing people off, so we're using it for those pokes. And with these particular stats, it's hitting for 476 AR, so it's no slouch, guys. It's going to be poking hard. Obviously, it doesn't have the reach of, say, something like a Gargoyle Flame Spear, but that's okay. I'm using it here just to finish people off, essentially, and I'm a fan of the R2 attack as well. It's like this roll-catching sweep, which is pretty good, and I'm also somewhat a fan of the weapon art, which is this sort of spin/variation. The reason I like it is because situationally it is quite effective. Say, for example, if you're blocking and then going into it, it can catch your opponent off guard depending on the caliber of your opponent, essentially. And it does benefit from a decent amount of hyper armor, so it will stack with your armor poise value there, guys. So obviously don't use it to trade with great hammers or something like that. But against faster weapon classes, it is quite good at out-trading them as well, and hitting them off guard, essentially, if the situation deems it appropriate. Now, that's pretty much it here, guys, for this particular setup. I hope you enjoyed it. This one was a lot of fun to use. On top of that, one last thing I will mention, the Dark Mace being a medium hyper armor weapon, you're not going to get the same AR as, you know, those ultra weapons. So you'll notice here I've got a lot of vigor in this build, 44 vigor. Normally I have anywhere between 37 and 40. And the reason being is usually when I'm using those heavier weapon classes, you know, I'm hitting for, you know, upwards of 700 AR sometimes, guys. So one trade with those heavier weapon classes is usually 2/3 of my opponent's life bar. So I don't need that much vigor for those heavier weapons. But with the hammer, with the mace, which is a regular hammer, you're not going to get the AR that you would from an ultra. So you do need more vigor to bait out those trades, because essentially you're going to have to trade a little bit more with the mace to finish your opponent off. So you're going to need that extra health there to do that. So that's pretty much it here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make. I am a big fan of this build. In fact, I'm in love with this build right now. I'm probably going to be using it for a while. So if you did enjoy this video, hit the like button. If you're enjoying my content, please subscribe. And as always, guys, thank you for watching.